What's up, everybody? I'm Justin Young, and he is Josh Tech, and this is the weekly Just a Minute podcast, only on HoopSeen.com and HoopSeen TV right here on YouTube. We appreciate you joining us. We hope that you had a great holiday season with your friends, your family, and tons of basketball. We know we certainly did. We were all over the country. Some of us healthy, some of us not. But that's okay. We had a chance to get out to the gym and watch some games virtually as well throughout the course of the week. And Josh, we have a lot to cover. We'll have a show, obviously, with Garrett Tucker as well, who was out at some other events too. So our staff was out and about, saw a ton of stuff. First of all, how you feeling? How was Thanksgiving? All the good stuff.
Well, here. First of all, let's start off with this. I'm going to petition that we change the name from Thanksgiving and we just celebrate Feast Week as a whole, because I was sick over the weekend, and it was the best time to be sick because it was wall-to-wall basketball, right? From last Sunday to this Sunday, it was basketball on all day long. I couldn't even catch up because I'd fall asleep too early, so I was on meds.
And then you throw World Cup on top of that. Like, my queue is like,
great. Are you kidding me? I would wake up, watch like maybe 2 World Cup games, and then from then it was just like Maui, PK85, the Bahamas. You got all kinds. It's all over the place. It was fantastic.
There was so much to see, so much to talk about. So we'll certainly dive into it here. I had a chance to go up to Utah for the Five for the Fighting National Hoop Fest, and you stayed virtual, if you will, for the Jared Cook Classic as well as the Hawks Naismith Classic there in the Atlanta area. We'll talk about all those events right here on this week's Just a Minute. And Josh, anytime I can get a chance to get up to Utah, if you know me well, I love getting up in those mountains. And then you add basketball to it. I couldn't have asked for a better week. I mean, we really had some big time action up there.
Yeah, you sent me a video of the snow covered mountains with the beautiful trees in the background, and that really set the tone for the holiday season for me. I was stuck in my room, coughing up all along, but that was beautiful, and you got to see some great basketball on top of it all. So let's kick it off with, what were some of your biggest takeaways from Utah?
Well, great question, because one of the reasons why I was so excited about this is we've talked about it before. We've promoted it really well. Is that we really have 3 of the top teams from the NIBC, really the top high school basketball league there is in America. You've got Montverde Academy out of Florida. You got Sunrise Christian out of Wichita, Kansas, and you had AZ Compass Prep from Chandler, Arizona. And those 3 teams, and Bishop Walsh obviously was there as well from Maryland. And, if you follow basketball really well, that the state of Utah is really a state that's got some great teams. Obviously, Wasatch Academy, a team that I really enjoy watching, and we'll see them quite a bit all over the country this year. They were there, and we'll talk about them here on the show today. But also some really good high school teams, really well-coached teams out of the state of Utah. So the balance between those were really, really good. But ultimately, when it came down to it, Josh, was the matchups. And there were 2 games that I couldn't wait to see. I brought family out to it. I had friends that live in that area. I'm like, listen, you guys got to come see these games. And those 2 games were 2. It was Montverde against AZ Compass, and then the next day it was AZ Compass against Sunrise Christian. And what AZ Compass did, really, to me, they were the MVP as a team, as a collective whole, because they won both of those games. And now they're the number 1 team in the country. And I think the reason why they are, and I wrote about it in my 10 things on Monday on HoopSeen.com, is really the way they play, the way they get after it. Like, one of my brothers was there, and I said, dude, just watch the way that my friend Ed Gibson coaches this team. He gets after his guys. He demands a lot out of them, puts pressure on his players to in turn put pressure on the team that they're playing. And the way that they guard, to me, that was the thing. I think they held teams under 60 points in both of those matchups. And really, when you think about that, you're playing Montverde, a team with like 600 Division I guys on their roster, right? Like, no strangers are playing all over the country. And then Sunrise Christian, a team that ultimately I think is one of the most, if you can be a top 5 team in the country every year and be a sleeper, at least maybe it's stuck in the middle of the country. It's not East Coast bias, it's not West Coast bias, it's countrywide bias, I guess. I don't know. But anytime you play those 2 teams, you hold both of them under 60 points. I think that says a lot to the type of style that AZ Compass wants to play. And we saw that out of them. And 2, I think, was their depth. Interesting stat. I looked through it. There was only 2 players total in those 2 games that scored over 10 points. And the rest of them were 8 points, 7 points, 6 points, and they run 11 guys deep. And to me, that ultimately is what really kind of put the pressure on Montverde in that unbelievable game. They held Montverde to 27% shooting from the floor in the fourth quarter. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact they run 11 guys deep in that roster. And I think ultimately that's really what pushed them over the edge, is that depth. That depth is crazy, man. The depth is crazy. And so for me, that was the MVP of the group. And now we've got them sitting at number one. And Montverde, certainly played really, really well. And to lose a game like that, you're going to lose a couple games like that every season. But to me, that was it. And when you saw like Montverde back in Florida at our friend Scott Golden's event, like what was your theme of that team when you watched them, like when you saw them?
Honestly, the theme of that team was their depth for me. So the fact
Really?
that there's another team out there that was as deep, if not deeper,
I think
that says a lot. Like, right?
Yeah, I think they were deeper.
And then another thing was their size. Like they had I feel like they ran out a million guys that were 6'7", 6'8", 6'9".
Well, listen, if you've watched the show, if you read my Twitter account, if you read HoopSeen.com, you know I love Mookie Cook. He's our number 2 overall player in the country, and Mookie did a great job earlier in the season against Cameron Boozer at the Border League, and we saw that defense shine again from Mookie Cook, the Oregon-bound, do everything guy. I thought defensively he was really, really good. Did a good job of getting stuck on some switches and matched up with Cooper Flagg. And he got matched up with KJ Evans, his teammate that's going to be at Oregon, and matched up with Derek Queen in a couple possessions. So I think Mookie Cook's versatility was really, really good. One more thing about AZ Compass that I was really impressed by. So the event was played at Pleasant Grove High School in Utah County, Utah. So that's just south of Salt Lake. Maybe like 45 minutes south of Salt Lake. That's where Jordan Ross, who's going to St. Mary's, is from. That's where he originally started. Went out to Link, and then he's down at AZ Compass. But he's playing on his home court where he started his high school basketball career. I thought Jordan Ross was phenomenal, to be honest with you. I thought Jordan Ross was poised. I thought he did a really good job on the defensive end. I thought it was time to make some big free throws down the stretch against Montverde. He stepped up, did a great job. I thought Jordan Ross was phenomenal, probably one of the best performances I've seen from him. And again, they're balanced. Nobody's going to be a stud on that team, and that's the design of that team. And if you can really do a good job standing out, I think really that's the real critical part of it all when you look at it. A couple other notes from this, Josh. We saw a big upset from American Fork. They beat Sunrise Christian. And kind of a controversial deal. Some calls were made, whatever. It's interesting with these teams that are national teams that travel over the country. They're always going to get a little home cooking because they're never really the home team, and nobody ever really wants to go play them on their own home court. And so I think we saw that a little bit. But that's kind of, listen, you play a national schedule, and that's what a lot of these schools want. You're going to kind of run into that buzzsaw that's known as a little home cooking. And that's not to discredit anything from American Fork. I thought the head coach's son, Tiger Cuff, did a great job. A 6'3", 6'4" junior point guard did a really, really nice job of controlling the tempo of his team and doing a nice job of kind of setting the tone for what they're going to do. But, huge win for American Fork, and certainly one of the biggest wins of the early season so far. Really like that from them. I don't need to keep talking, Josh, but I just got a lot on my mind, man. I got to get it all out. I thought Jeremiah Johnson from Wasatch Academy, if there's a guy that we're really – I want to kind of start a segment here on the show, and our friend Garrett Tucker kind of brought this up on his coverage from the Lighthouse Classic. Who you buying stock in? And I'll ask you that question for your stuff. But for me, Jeremiah Johnson of Wasatch Academy is a really interesting guy. 2024 guard from Oklahoma City. Listen, the guy got shot in the leg like less than 2 years ago, had a battle back, was playing the playground, I think was caught in some crossfire, unfortunately, and really had to do a lot of work to work himself back into a position where he's at now. And I thought he was tremendous. I thought he was probably one of the 3 best performers that I saw in this loaded event. I love what he brought to the table. He's on the composite 24/7 rankings as 180. It's way too low, man. I think he's a top 100 guy. Big guard. A lot of Big 12 schools are already, he's taking visits to. Pac-12 schools are starting to mess around. So I think if you're looking for a stock riser, I think Jeremiah Johnson from Wasatch is a guy that you got to keep your eyes on. And then rounding things out for me, Josh, I thought Mikael Brown from Sunrise was great. Like, he was 7 from 12 from 3. You've seen him before. I mean,
he was at Best of the South one year.
That's right. I mean, basically, if you're from Florida, you've probably played at Best of the South at some point. Absolutely torched the nets, unafraid of the moment. And really, Sunrise, I think, had a difficult time as a team getting their flow together offensively. I thought Mikael Brown was in the flow, no doubt about it, and was really, really good from 3. Was a big threat throughout the course of the event. So love what I saw from him. So really fun day, man. Tons of coverage on HoopSeen.com. We've got our new staff member on our team, Griffin Greenberg, with some great content from there as well. Our top performers from that event's on HoopSeen.com right now. Tons of photos, and we're rolling some stuff out on Instagram as well. So make sure you follow us at HoopSeen on Instagram. And while you're doing all the subscribing and liking all those things, do that for our YouTube channel right here. Make sure you like and subscribe. We want to make sure our subscribers get all the content first. So, Josh, let me ask you a couple stuff. You saw where were you at? You went to you saw Jared Cook Classic, and then you saw some action at Naismith at the Hawks Naismith
That's right.
holiday event. I'll kind of ask you the same thing. Like, was there an MVP that you saw from your action that you took in?
Yeah. So first of all, the one benefit of being sick was that I could be all around Atlanta at one time. Thank you, SUV TV, for providing coverage.
No doubt.
I was, I had both those, events streaming, plus I had college games streaming in the background. So really, it was a pretty damn good time being sick. But yeah, so my MVP from those, two events that I saw had to have been Moses Hips from McEachern. McEachern played Grovetown at the Hawks Naismith in one of, the games of the year in Georgia. Yeah. Those are, two really high level programs. And Moses Hips, a guard transferred in from New Jersey, a junior guard transferred in from New Jersey to play at McEachern. He exploded in the second half of that game. He had finished with 27 points. He had 18 points in the second half, and he was the difference maker for me. Like, he broke that game wide open. It was a back and forth game.
He's a junior
on the runs, but in that second half, his 18 points really caused separation between McEachern and Grovetown, and it was because of his 3-point shooting. He had 5 threes, and 4 of those threes came in that second half.
He's a junior.
He's a junior, 2024. We have him in our top 100 right now, but I think that he's going to be closer to a top 75, closer to top 50 kind of guy when it's all said and done.
I love it. Big guard, big size.
Yeah, around 6'4" or so.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to tell from, that's the one downside from streaming is you don't get to really see that kind of stuff. But, yeah, he's around 6'4". So, yeah, he's got some size to him. He really shoot the ball, really score the ball. He was really great.
How did Ace Bailey play for McEachern?
He was good. So Ace Bailey opened the game with a pair of threes, and it was one of those things where it's like, oh my God, if he's going to be doing this all game long, then that's just the number one player in the country. But, Darion Reed did a really good job at slowing him down on defense. Darion Reed is a fantastic defender. So Ace Bailey kind of slowed down in his scoring production, but his defense, his rebounding, and his passing did not slow down at all. He made some terrific passes. I think that's where he impressed me the most. Those cross-court passes, no-look passes. I think he's really improved in that regard.
I'm thinking about this and going back to college basketball, what you talked about at the beginning of the show. Give me all the good matchups right out of the gate, man. For sure. With football, obviously you're limited on how many games you play, but I'd love it, man. Let's play David versus Goliath versus. I'm already screwing up all my
Goliath and Goliath. And you know what? Give me some Davids versus Goliath because those Davids are out there challenging themselves.
No doubt. Like, give it to me. Give me all the smoke, right? I want to see all the best action. I want to see the top 5 teams going head to head, and really, to me, that's where what you do in November really doesn't really mean much ultimately. Yeah. For what you're doing in February, March, but it's building that process, right, to getting to that place. And it doesn't hurt you to play a really high-level game to start the season. So I'm all for it. I want that all the time. Is there a game that stood out to you in your action?
Yeah, it was that McEachern Grovetown game. And, it was a bit of it turned into a lopsided affair. McEachern kind of pulled away a little bit. Darion Reed had some cramps late in the game. So, it wasn't like the best, most it wasn't like the most back and forth, like, oh my God, who's going to win this game?
Sure.
It was a fantastic prospect evaluation game because it was pitting apples against apples, right? Like, you're pitting 2 high-level programs filled with like D1 prospects across the board. So you really got to see who was real and who wasn't real. And, for me, Darion Reed in that one, he took that Ace Bailey challenge, personally. And before he started going out with cramps, he was maybe the best player on the floor on both ends. So that was a really great, opportunity to see Darion Reed perform at a high level. Ace Bailey was great. Moses Hips was great for McEachern. Jermichael Davis for McEachern had a really great game. He was great at the rim, played really great defense. He's a super tough guard that's kind of going under the radar in the 2023 class. And then Georgia State, man, they got a hell of a player in Malik Ferguson. So far in Georgia, he's maybe my favorite player of the season.
Okay. Why?
He's just so tough, man. He just he produces every game. He's so tough at the rim. He's so tough on defense. He's bigger guard, 6'4", really physical guy. So he can kind of play multiple positions, defend multiple spots on the floor. And he doesn't get bothered by contact when he goes to the rim. And he's been able to shoot the ball pretty well as well.
Let me put you on the spot. Talk specifically about Georgia. After what you've seen so far in the early part of the season, we're 2 weeks into the season, roughly 2.5 weeks into the season.
Yeah.
The team that scares you the most across all classifications is who?
It's got to be Wheeler and McEachern. Like, because I need to see them play head to head before I can give you a definitive answer. Because Wheeler has those 3 high major guys, right?
Yeah.
Number 1 player in the class, Isaiah Collier, Arrington Page, Jelani Hamilton. Plus, they have depth beyond them. Some younger depth, some guys who are really great role players and stuff like that. But McEachern, man, they looked impressive. They looked really impressive against Grovetown. They got Ace Bailey. They have those 2 guards in Moses Hips and Jermichael Davis, who are fantastic. I mean, those guards were the difference in that game. And they have J.D. Palm, the 2025 guy, big 6'9", strong, athletic, forward, who didn't even play all that well. He's kind of, hasn't been a difference maker just yet, but I think he can. And then beyond those, star players, they also have guys like Jalen Hilliard, who are, really great role players. So I think both of those teams kind of have the depth, they have the talent at the top, and they have really great under the radar guys.
I love it. I'll ask you the question that we talked about earlier. Who are you buying stock in right now?
I'm pushing so many of my chips. Maybe I'll push all of my chips in on CJ Highland at Grayson right now. He's been one of the best players in Georgia to start the season, and I don't even think it's really close. He's averaging over 20 points a game right now. He's done a great job at leading that Grayson offense. He's only a junior, and what I love about this Grayson team is that they have 3 great guards who I think are all stock riser kind of guards, and they're all juniors. And they have a forward in Amir Taylor, who's 6'8", really great passer, really great versatile guy, who's a sophomore. So they're all young, and they're all still going to keep growing together. Yeah. But right now, CJ Highland has been the star of that team for me.
You know what's crazy about CJ? He's been playing at HoopSeen since he was 9U, legit. His dad's been a big coach in the youth, the youth scene. Has played, I think, on every year he's been in high school or been playing basketball since 9U, which is cool to see. So I love when I hear stuff like that, where you don't have the history because you weren't there with us when it was 9U. You've been with us a couple of years, but to see a guy like that's been literally as a little guy to now here he is as a real impactful high school guy, man, makes my heart.
Right, really, man. With CJ, I think he's going to be the biggest stock riser in that junior class, and why I think that what he's doing is so impressive is because it's going to set the stage for a recruiting cycle in the spring and summer, right? Because right now he's building that kind of buzz around his name. So when it comes to spring and summer, coaches are going to flock to see him, and I think it's going to be deservedly so. He's been fantastic. And what's great, you mentioned Garrett at the Lighthouse Classic the other day. He texted me, kind of being like, hey, what Grayson guy should I have my eye on? And I gave him the rundown, gave him all the guys that he needed to, watch. And after the game, he texted me, said, I love CJ Highland. So he's not just impressing me, he's impressing Garrett as well.
He's trending, baby. He's trending. That's what we love.
His stock is going all the way up.
We love it. We love guys like that. Let's wrap up our high school coverage real quick. Best underclassman. I mean, CJ Highland obviously probably falls in that category. Was there another young guy?
He's 2024. So I think juniors are upperclassmen to me. So I'm going to go with a sophomore. I'm going to go Jacob Wilkins over at Parkview. 6'8" wing. In basketball right now, the trend, across the board is big wings, right? That can do a lot. And Jacob Wilkins is that guy. Oh my God, was he great for Parkview at the Jericho Classic? He had 27 points. He had 7 rebounds. He had 4 blocks. He was doing everything. In the second half, he was just putting on a one-man dunk show. In transition, he was just living above the rim. Early on, he hit a couple threes, kind of showed his versatility there. And he was fantastic across the board.
Well, we're not surprised. We saw a lot of great stuff from him on the travel circuit at TSF. I think it was Gibbons, where he played really, really well.
So, he played with us in a lot of events this summer, and he was great across the board.
Yeah, I love it. Let's pivot real fast. Let's end it right here. Let's stay with college and high school, okay? The best player that you saw over Feast Week was who?
That's a great question. You know what? I'm going to go with maybe I don't know if he was the best player, but he made the biggest impact on me. And it's this team made the biggest impact on me. It's Creighton, and it's Baylor Shireman. That guy can shoot the absolute hell out of the ball. He's just taking shots that were just reckless, and they were going in left and right. I think Creighton really impressed me. I know they didn't win Maui. They played a tough Arizona team who's, also has a ton of stock rising kind of players on their team. But Creighton has been probably the most impressive team to me. What about you?
Oh, Brandon Miller, Alabama.
Oh, he's been awesome.
It's funny. I actually was looking at it this morning. Let me pull my notes real fast. And I was like, how did we get it wrong? Because we had him rated not very high. I think it was, we had him at 15. But really when I'm looking at the freshmen, who's been really impressive? 2 guys. Jarris Walker out of Houston's been amazing. And Brandon Miller. To me, those are the 2 freshmen that I'm like, gosh, dang, man, those guys are killing it. And Brandon Miller looks like a guy legitimately you could argue that it could be, a top 5 pick, top 3 pick, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Size, great shooter, great scorer, and just like a dude. And I was thinking, like, I didn't really hear a ton of buzz. Now, he was part of the COVID kids, right? Like, didn't go to a lot of the national camps, kind of kept a low profile out of the Nashville area. Obviously not playing a ton of stuff because of COVID. I think hurt a couple of guys and their exposure to the eyeballs that create opinions. But Brandon Miller, to me, has been amazing. And same thing, like to your point about Jacob Wilkins, right? Like these big wings that can score. I mean, Brandon has been nothing short of phenomenal this season, and really a guy that I think I heard somebody say the other day that you can make a case he's the National Player of the Year already as a freshman. So interesting take.
Another guy who we need to talk about as National Player of the Year, Zach Edey. Man, Purdue, they've been awesome. I've been loving watching Purdue, and Zach Edey's been dominating people. He's been fantastic. Let me give another shout out to a guy, and I think his story is a great one, right? It's Omar Ballo at Arizona. Yeah. Like he's been on a tear recently, and he might be a newer name to people because at Gonzaga he was there with Tommy Lloyd.
Yep.
He didn't play a lot. He didn't play a lot at Arizona last year, and now he's starting to blossom. And I think that's a great story because he's bided his time. He's developed in a system, and then now he's shining. He's a superstar. Right now.
College basketball is a lot of fun right now. A lot of fun.
Great.
Tons of fun. What's on tap for you, Josh Tech, this week?
I'm getting back out on the road now that I'm healthy. I'm feeling pretty good now, so I'm getting back on the road tomorrow on Tuesday. I'm going to see Hiram versus North Paulding. There are a lot of great, Division II, Division III prospects in that one. And then throughout the week, I'm going to go see other teams. And then on Saturday is the Tournament of Champions showcase at Wheeler. And there's just a lot of high-level matchups in that one. You got Wheeler playing Kimball from Texas. You got Kell playing McEachern. You got Pebblebrook playing Tri-Cities. And there's just, more across the board. Grayson playing Alexander. That's going to be a great game. That's going to be a sleeper on that card. So there's a lot of great stuff coming out of that one. What about you?
Yeah, just some local stuff here in the Phoenix area. We got the Hoop Hall West next week in Scottsdale. Then I'll be headed up to Vegas for the Tark Classic as well, coming up down the road. So a ton of action, man, all over the place. Obviously, we'll be hitting the streams too. If you got a game that you want us to see, if you got a player that you want us to watch, man, tweet at us. Let us know. We'd love to see it. Josh and I watch a ton of games online. And certainly we're open to watching anybody, anywhere, anytime. So tons to talk about, and we'll be talking about this every single week right here on the Just a Minute podcast. We got a lot to talk about every single week, so make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll have you covered all the time. Make sure you follow us on all the socials at HoopSeen. Josh, what's your handle on Twitter?
_Josh Tech, JOSHTEC.
I love it. Make sure you give Josh a good follow, as well as our entire team at HoopSeen.com. For Josh Tech, I'm Justin Young. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening to another edition of Just a Minute podcast right here on HoopSeen.com.